Welcome to Emotional Resilience, Living with the Fruit of the Spirit. I'm your host and author, Ron Ovitt. Today we're on Lesson 34, Habits, Part 3. We're continuing our series on habits. Now, why do we want to know about habits? Well, we're habitual people, and habits can make and break some situations, right? When we're doing the right kind of things and the right kind of habits, then emotionally, we can feel pretty good about life, right? But if we're doing some things that are bringing us down, then, emotional resilience is going to be in question, isn't it? It's going to cause us troubles. And so we want to take time during a year-long course like this to talk about habits. We want to be able to build good habits. We want to be able to overcome the negative habits. Now, we spent the first two lessons in the habits series talking about triggers, talking about those cues. You can use stimulus, trigger, cues, the same words, but what they're talking about are those things that all of a sudden cause us to want to react, to behave in a certain area, a certain way. Today we want to look on changing our behavior or changing the reward. You see, we talked about the habit formula. The habit formula has three parts. It has the stimulus, the response, and the reward. Now, what's that mean? It means that there's a trigger, something triggers us, we have a behavior, and then all of a sudden, there's the consequence of that behavior. Now, if it's favorable, then we keep doing it, right? If it's unfavorable, we can extinguish that behavior. So in a habit, there's a stimulus, a response, or behavior, right? And then a reward. Well, today we want to look at changing the behavior. Can that help? Or maybe we can change the reward. It's not easy overcoming a craving or a habit that really calls out to us. As we talked about in the previous lessons, it's that dopamine that pounds us, right? The striatum gets primed. All of a sudden we see a trigger and it cues, and it starts pumping out dopamine. That striatum starts pumping out, and that's, I gotta have it. And we can treat that much like we do any of the emotions, because there's a similarities between an emotion, right, and a craving. They both have sensations. They both want to get us to act. So a lot of the things that we learn in emotional regulation can help with that. We can breathe. We can do other things that will help us. And so we saw that, we can kind of change the trigger, and that will help. Well, today we want to talk about changing the behavior, not just the trigger. When the mind says that I have to have it, what do? We go right down the road, right? It associates with the cue and then the reward. And so what we want to do is to be able to stop that. You see, when the dopamine pumps, it's more about anticipation, right, than satisfaction. And if we can change some of those parts of the formula, we'll be doing well. So let's talk about substitute. The truth and insight can help us think of other behaviors that will satisfy the same trigger. But this comes when we slow things down, right? When we first start getting triggered, we have to make choices. Unfortunately, that dopamine is pumping and we're going right toward what we don't want to do. But if we can breathe, like I said, if we can regulate it a little bit, slow it down, we might be able to start thinking of what else could I do. It'd be better if we already knew something else we wanted to do, and then all we have to do is switch, right? We slow it down and we do the other thing. We preempt ourselves with that. But you know what? We can do that. Let's take examples. I'll be using a lot of examples, like one would be with sugar, okay? As the body craves the sugar, the brain expects it. But what's interesting, the brain then lowers the sugar, expecting the spike. And so when cake doesn't come, right, or whatever it is we're going to consume, the brain is on lower sugar, which is interpreted as energy deprivation. And it sends a signal, we have to have sugar. So it kind of complicates everything, doesn't it? But what if I told you that many times what we're really craving is something else, and that we would be satisfied? The truth is, craving sugary foods means that your body is deficient in the micronutrients found in whole foods like fruit. It includes essential nutrients as zinc and magnesium, the B vitamins, and a vitamin C in that. And so a lot of times if we can, find a good substitute and we make sure we're getting the vitamins we need, we can kind of overcome that craving. Or what if you knew that the fatty foods, the carbs, really means that you're craving vitamins A or D and E that are found in like nuts and seeds, avocado, fish, and whole animal products. I mean, I do that a lot of times. I've found that I've been able to substitute by eating some of the different kinds of nuts and seeds, and it will satisfy. So a lot of times you can find something else that will satisfy. If you're smoking because it relaxes you, why not replace the smoking with relaxing techniques that we talked about not so many lessons ago? Why not do the deep breathing? Why not go walking? Why not listen to some soothing music? The results will be the same. Then we'll find out whether you're really, it was really a lack of relaxation in that, or was it the withdrawal from the nicotine? If it is the result of nicotine withdrawal, then if you quit the smoking, the withdrawal from nicotine would be a thing of the past. So it helps you figure out, because it's not easy to quit some of these things. It's not. But if we can motivate ourselves, because without motivation, it's not going to work. But if we can see that something's going to work, now we can change our motivation, right? We have hope. It's important to have the right kind of motivation. And when we learn things like this, our goal is to give you hope where you can start visualizing yourself being without that habit and becoming what you really want to be. Look at anger. Anger can become a habit. I mean, think of what we gain sometimes, right? Anger works sometimes. If we want people to not bother us, if we want people to do what we want, if we have certain things, we can bully our way into it. We can get angry and stop all the hassle around us, but really, is that a way to live? The people around us that are in the wake of our anger, do they enjoy it? No. But what if we could substitute it with being healthily assertive? We don't have to go over the top. We can be healthily assertive, and there's other ways. Win-win can sometimes work out, but a delegation instead of having to supervise everything. There's ways that we can overcome some of that when we substitute the behavior. I know I told you in the past about my nail biting. I didn't know I bit my nails for decades and never knew that there was a little sensation going on until one day I read and someone mentioned tingling, and I thought, and sure enough, there was a tingling going on. And so I figured, okay, that's tingling, and the thing that came to my mind is, why not rub the nails? And you know what? That got rid of the tingling. And if it happened again, I rubbed my nails again and got rid of it. And then I researched, well, what do you do when your nails get a little longer? Well, you can use, the emery board, you can use nail clippers, and I learned how to do that. And you know what? I haven't bit my nails since. But it was all because I saw that I saw the sensation, and I thought, I wonder if there's another behavior that would satisfy that. And sure enough, it did. And then emery boards and clipping, all that took place of biting my nails. If substance abuse is a problem, well, then we have to ask ourselves, what are we gaining? What are we getting out of it? Are we numbing out? Are we regulating our emotions, or are we escaping from them? Are we trying to cope? Well, certainly as we look at that, if that's our real desire, if something's bothering us that bad, then there's a lot of things we can do to replace that. We can go to meetings. We can make new friends, right? We can go through step 1 through 3 in AA that talks about, finding a higher power that can help us. We can certainly turn to God, right? We can do some of the things, and we can start visualizing it and see that if we change some of the behaviors, and that's where motivation comes in, because it's not going to be that easy. I mean, when that dopamine starts pumping and we want to get into that substance, we have to be very proactive. We have to decide already that I don't want to be that. I don't want to do that. And so then as we rehearse what we're going to do instead, you see, and a lot of times it's making that decision. I'm going to be a non-drinker, for example. I'm going to be a healthy eater. I'm going to be smoke-free. When we make those decisions, it changes who we see ourselves as, which then has a whole new set of behaviors. Now, we may trip and fall, but we get back up. And we continue because we have a new desire now. And we see ourselves, when we can see the behaviors, and we start moving in that direction. You know, it's the same thing with snacking. A lot of times the urge to snack, then we have to ask ourselves, is this really hunger or is it boredom I'm sensing? If it's hunger, try substituting the sugar or carbs, whatever it is, with the low calorie or a sugar-free or something. You can still get some satisfaction, but not get the negativity from the foods that you don't want to eat. If it's stress release, well, then you might want to take a deep breath, get up and walk. Distance yourself from it, take some time away from it, and you'll see that wave of emotion, of craving, will go away. What happens, and the secret is, what often happens when we change a routine is that the cue will eventually go away, right? I changed my routine to emery boards, and guess what? The nail biting went away. The cue went away. When you have sugar craving or caffeine need, your brain realizes when you substitute the behavior that the cue is no longer needed. And so you don't necessarily need that, so it really helps. You can start becoming something else. The habits start to go away and you take on new habits, okay? But like I said, none of this works without motivation. The key is, what do you want, right? And once you decide that, you can also look at what I call secondary habits. Secondary habits are those things that we do that lead up to the eventual behavior. For example, if you know that drinking is your problem, I've worked with a lot of people in addictions, and you know that every Friday night you go to Joe's Bar and Grill, right, and you spend the paycheck, then you know ahead of time that that's what you've been desiring, and you make up your mind ahead of time, I don't want to be that guy, I don't want to go there anymore. Well, that's a secondary habit, right? Going that direction, going to Joe's Bar and Grill is where you're going to get triggered, right? And that's where you're going to do the drinking. So why not substitute that? Go home a different direction. Now, obviously, desire is really important there. You have to fight that urge. But by not going that direction, you're really giving yourself time to slow down on that, right? Secondary habits. And so you can ask yourself, what are some of the secondary habits that I have? Where do you do your habit? If what new behavior could you create in order to change that, right? It might be to avoid wherever it is that triggers you. If you always go to the same place, like we said, Joe's Bar and Grill, change it, right? If it's always going to a snack at across the street from your business where they had a certain area has your snack foods, go somewhere else. Pack a lunch, bring a snack with. There's different things that you can do. Another one would be, who do you participate with, right? If the people won't support you and help you, then you may need to hang around with other people for a while until the habit gets established, the new habit gets established. It could be, what are you thinking before you participate? And you might start realizing that, you really get the craving or the desire when you're depressed. Well, let's do something about depression then. Seek out a counselor. Get some help with that. It may be when you're getting anxious. What's making you anxious? Start studying about it. Seek out a counselor. Figure out what's bothering you. Get rid of what's bothering you, and you might get rid of the trigger, you see. And then there's the where. You can always substitute, what we said about the where. And then who do you get it from? There's just a lot of those secondary habits that lead up to the eventual demise. And so you can go ahead and figure that out. Well, what secondary habits then do you have? The when, the what, the where, the who, those things need to change. Changing habit behavior and secondary habits can set you free. And so I encourage you to really, really look at that. What's the behavior? Can I substitute the behavior and get a different, better result? Same trigger, different behavior. Are the secondary habits, can I change them and therefore I won't even be triggered? Look into that, will you? Well, the second part we want to look at is changing the reward. Changing the reward. And the question is, you have to ask yourself, what do you really want? What do you really want? Desire is important. A lot of times what happens is that this is the result of a well-worn pathway in our brain. We get triggered and our dopamine says, I gotta have it, and boom, we're right down the road. But if we can, even in hindsight, start saying there's got to be a different future for me. There's got to be something different. Then what we do is we look at that, we visualize that, we seek that out, and we let that be a motivator. We see that reward, even though it might not be immediate. It's something that we want. Rewards are powerful. And if we can find another reward, it will really help us when we get triggered. You can replace that. Desire is a powerful motivator. A habit anticipates a reward. And they are the behavioral reaction to a trigger that strives toward that reward, right? And when we want a desire more than what we're currently receiving from the habit, we may have found that motivation to change. So I encourage you, what is it that you really want? What is it that you really desire? Seek after that with all your heart. Figure out a way to get there. I often think myself, when I really want to start changing something, I have a picture of someone else that's doing that, and I may judge them in my mind. And I've been doing that, and all of a sudden I think, well, hold it. Who do I think I am? I don't want to be that person. And that helps me see that, wow, Ron, come on. Or I might see a model out there of someone that's doing what I'm anticipating, and I go, I want to be that person. And so a lot of times that helps clarify it in our mind. Well, the beautiful thing is that when we start thinking of a reward, we can start, not just running from something, but running to something. We're running toward a new reward. We're running to something more exciting, something healthier, something better, and that really can win in the long run. Let's consider, for example, some habits that by tweaking the reward, we can change the habit. Let's say going to the morning coffee break, okay? Your coworkers want you to go with them on a morning break with them, but all there is to eat there are the foods high in sugar and carbs, and you're not wanting to do that. So what can you do? What are the rewards? Well, one of the rewards is the sugar rush, but aren't there others? Of course. The socializing, right? Being with the friends. The relaxing, taking a break from the job for that break time. Well, those are 2 good rewards. So all you need to do is keep them and just substitute something else that you can eat. You can bring your own, right? You can keep the socializing going, bring a healthier snack to share if you want, and get satisfied instead of a sugar rush, and wear, maybe wear your skinny jeans, right, to the thing, or anticipate wearing them. Let that be a motivation. And so you can ask yourself, substitute the why. Have you ever stopped to ask yourself, why am I doing this? What possible gain am I getting from this? Well, you can substitute the why. And so instead of excitement, why not satisfaction? A lot of times we get excitement from viewing sexual things, maybe on a computer and that we know we shouldn't be doing. But that might be questioning and saying, well, why am I not enjoying intimacy? And intimacy would bring much more satisfaction. Why not, substitute, friendships, that might be destroying us with friendships that won't destroy us, if that's the case. And so what makes a good reward? It's got to be specific, right? The more specific, the better. I'll go somewhere else instead of Joe's Bar and Grill on Friday nights. It isn't good enough to say I'm going to go somewhere else. That's not specific enough. You won't win the war that way. Instead, you need to think of somewhere you are going to go or what you're going to do that excites you, that makes sense, and you start visualizing having fun and feeling good about that. They've done tests, video tests, where they've had people go to the bar and they gave half the people, non-alcoholic drinks, and other people the alcoholic drinks. They all thought they were having alcoholic drinks, and test after test after test, everyone had a great time, whether they had the alcohol or not. And if we can capture that, right, then we can be out there having a great time without that kind of alcohol or whatever it might be. So sometimes we need to just open ourselves up to, hey, I can have a good time doing something else. And we make it desirable. And then, of course, it has to be achievable. Don't set some goal that isn't going to work. It needs to be something that you really can do, something that you can do, and it's not going to be that difficult. And what helps with all this is using our imagination. Visualization is something that God has given each one of us, and we can start using it to practice changing our behavior before we ever get tested. We can start feeling how our body rejects that at first and keep trying it and keep thinking it until finally we accept it, and we can see the good in what we're going to do. We can see the reward. We can feel the satisfaction. We can see ourselves, in the case of not eating the sugar, fitting in clothes that we like. We can see ourselves feeling healthier. Whatever it is that's going to be the long-term goal, you can visualize it. And yes, we may fall, but then you get back up. That's how athletes do it all the time. Do you ever watch a baseball player? He'll miss the ball, but then what's he do? He sits there and he swings a couple times. He's not just loosening his arms. He's picturing himself batting that ball out of there this time. And you can see a high jumper. He's looking like this. And you can see him just in his mind's eye going over the high bar because he's practicing it in his mind. And we need to do that too. We don't look at it as defeat or a failure. We see it maybe as a misfire or a slip, but we get back and we try again because our goal is something we want to meet. And it's worth changing the behavior. It's a different reward that is going to satisfy. And so we want to use all the tools we can. Next time we get together, we're going to talk about changing our mind, and we're going to talk about help from above. We're going to talk about how God can help us with these things, how we can have the power of the Holy Spirit in our life to help motivate and change. So next time we get together, we'll be on the last lesson in our series on habits, and I invite you to participate with us then. Thanks for joining us today on this Emotional Resilience Living with the Fruit of the Spirit class. Please share this video with others. Like, subscribe, hit the notification bell so you won't miss any of the other exciting classes. You can also, for books and videos and podcasts, you can go to our website, ronovitt.com, and find out more information.